Good evening, people. I'm back again. It's me, Courtney. I'm back here to share with you another part of my book, How to Survive in Babylon. Tonight, we're going to delve into, just chapter 1. And there's a section in chapter 1 which is called Occasionally Going into a State of Solitude. Right now, in this chapter, we're just going to talk about, when we talk about solitude, we're talking about, spending time by yourself, which allows you to get to know who you are, what you're about, your likes and dislikes. This is about self-discovery, and the best path to self-discovery is sometimes going into solitude. All right. So I'm just going to read just a few words here, just a few lines of this section of the book, which talks about going into a state of solitude. To stay in tune with yourself and aligned with your character, it's important to go into a state of solitude from time to time. Don't be afraid to be alone sometimes. It's good to escape the noise and distractions of society. Now, what's happening is that out here today in society, there's a lot of noise that we take on a day-to-day basis, whether we realize it or not. And sometimes you have to drown out the noise, right? When I talk about noise, it could just be, other people's opinions, other people's words. And when you're taking on what everyone else is telling you, and you got all these words going in your mind, you can get lost. Your character and who you are can get lost, because now you're just taking on board what everybody else is telling you, or what everybody's saying to you, or whatever is being dictated to you on a day-to-day basis, right? Because this society is, in a sense, like a bit of dictatorship in a sense. Now, some of you may not agree with that. When you really look at society, when you look at, when you're going on the internet and you're listening to podcasts, and everybody's got their voice, and everybody's just, on the internet now saying what they want to say. Some people are saying things of substance. Some people are just, on the internet for clout, right? And some people just want to hear their own voice, not really saying anything of substance. And there's just too much voices that is out here today, just too much voices. And very rarely do you really hear your own voice, right? Because you're getting lost in what everyone else is saying. So sometimes it's important to go into a state of solitude, just to have that time of silence, just to connect with yourself, and it allows you to align with who you are, your inner character, your true self, right? So it's important to sometimes just close yourself off from society sometimes. I'm not talking about, just completely, cutting people off. I'm talking about having time to yourself, where you just have that time of solitude, where you just completely just cut off from society for a bit, and just have some you time where you get to connect with yourself, right? And this is something that you have to do regularly, because to survive and thrive in this society, this is this is another ingredient, basically, another strategy which allows you to connect to yourself, and it allows you to be your true self, your true original self, because there's nothing more powerful than knowing who you are, knowing your triggers, knowing your likes and dislikes, just having a very high knowledge of who you are. Because when you're alive, living in this state of knowing self, it's very difficult for people to manipulate you. And this is what, this society is very manipulative, right? It's very much, it thrives off it, because the government manipulate you, the media manipulate you, right? This society operates off manipulative behavior, right? So in order not to be a casualty of manipulation, it's important to go into a state of solitude, where you get to connect with yourself, right? You get to connect with your own thoughts, with your own feelings, your spirit. And this is just a time for you to just connect to yourself, right? And when you do this on a regular basis, believe me, your knowledge of self only increases and it gets higher and higher and higher. And when somebody tries to manipulate you out of your character, it's going to be very difficult for them to do so, right? Because when you know yourself, people just can't manipulate you so easy. So this is a tool, right, that I think we should all practice from time to time. Solitude, just going into yourself and just completely closing off from all the noise that's outside, right? Because it's just too much noise out there. And sometimes you just need that silence, right? That silence. And this has to be like a regular thing. This has to be, you have to be doing this on a day-to-day basis. Just having time for yourself, solitude, and just completely shutting off, right? And just completely closing off from all the noise that society brings to your ears on a day-to-day basis, right? Because if you look at people that are always spending time with other people, just study their characters versus people that spend a little bit more time by themselves. And it's not that people like that are loners. It just means that those people understand that they have to have time for themselves, right? And look at the people that are never by themselves, that are always around people. Just look at their characters and compare it to those that just take a little bit more time to spend with themselves. You know, not to be loners, but just so they can connect to themselves and catch up with themselves and, even reason with themselves, converse with themselves, just to reaffirm who they are, right? Just look at those people versus people that's always around people, that's never alone. And just look at the difference. Because when you're always around people and you're never by yourself, it's very hard for you to know who you are, because what you're doing is you're taking on what others have told you, and you're not really taking time to even question it because you're always around people. Sometimes you have to just have that cut-off time where you're just around nobody, where it's just you, yourself, and no one else, and have that connection with yourself, have that conversation with yourself. Ask yourself questions, find out, if you're being true to yourself, and you can only do that by spending time with yourself, which is what I call going into a state of solitude. Yeah, where you just spend time with yourself, and don't be afraid of yourself, right? Because some of us are afraid of ourselves. We're afraid of our own voices, our own minds, our own thoughts, and there's no need to be afraid of yourself. It's completely safe. It's a safe space to tap into who you are, tap into self, and just being with yourself. There's nothing to be afraid of, right? Because if you're afraid of yourself, then we've got to ask, why is that? Why are you afraid to spend time by yourself? Now, what's the problem? Are you afraid to face yourself? Are you afraid to face your own mind, your own thoughts? What's the issue? If there's an issue, write it down on a piece of paper. Write down what it is you're afraid of being with yourself. What is it that you're afraid of? Yeah? But that is one of the winning tools to survive and thrive in society today, is occasionally going into a state of solitude, spending time with yourself to align with your character and who you are. And that is one of the ways of being original, being your true self. Yeah. So I'm going to end it on that note, and I shall see you in the next video.